Hey there, how you guys doing today? I'm very excited for this inaugural issue of Video for Coaches, and I am really excited to have Marc Mawhinney with me today, or with us today, because this is Blab, and this is a big community. We've already got a number of people here already, and just to kind of open it up, and I want to tell you a little bit about Video for Coaches before I introduce Marc. So Video for Coaches. I am a person who's done video for 25 years probably, and I've been helping people with video. And I got really excited about how coaches can benefit from video, but also, I guess if I could choose my perfect client, it would be coaches. So that coaches are, they've got that positive, they've got, a lot of good energy. So that's how I kind of came to this point where I wanted to help coaches specifically with video. So thus I'm starting this series. I'm already over on YouTube publishing weekly kind of how-tos and whatnot. But I wanted to start an interview series that's talking with coaches who are using video. And there's so many different types of video from YouTube or Blab or Facebook or Facebook Live or Snapchat or whatnot. So we'll be covering all of those in the coming weeks. But I want to first introduce Marc Mawhinney. And Marc is a coach's coach. He's a podcaster. So you can see behind him, Natural Born Coaches is his podcast. And there we go. Yep. And, Marc is also using Facebook video really successfully and Facebook groups. So Marc, I want to just start out, if you could just kind of introduce yourself, tell us what you do, what your business is, just give the audience a little feel for you. Many of the folks on probably already know you, but I'm sure there's some folks who don't.
Yeah, well, we've got, speaking of Facebook groups, a number of people from the coaching jungle. I always have to get a shameless self-promotion plug for the coaching group. So if you go to thecoachingjungle.com, we'd love to have you, as long as you're not a spammer and you're sharing stuff at Oakley sunglasses and, stuff like that. Besides that, we'd love to have you if you're a coach or interested in coaching. So hi to, I see a whole bunch of people, Heather, Kay, John, Donna, and so on. But yeah, that's my thing is I love work with coaches as well, because coaches, you don't have to get past the whole point of explaining the benefits of coaching to them, because they're doing it, and they're the most open, willing to learn people, most willing to help that I've seen. And I know the words like heart-centered and stuff are used a lot nowadays, but I think it is true that that's generally that fits the description for coaches pretty well. So I love to help coaches, because I think that it can be challenging to build a coaching business. It's not easy, just like any business. And I want to see more coaches do well doing what we do best, helping others. That sounds like a Hallmark card or something, but
but I feel like that is part of what coaches all are. And I think that's why video works so well for them, because, unlike, there's a couple reasons that video works so well. One is, if you're an accountant or you need to hire an accountant, you really don't care what their personality is. You care if they're really good with numbers. Yeah. But if you want to hire a coach, you really need to click with that person. And the other thing is, I don't know how, accountants might be really passionate about numbers, but they're not necessarily passionate about having the entire world be really good with numbers. Whereas coaches are usually very passionate about their niche, and they want more than their one-on-one clients. They want everyone to be able to, excel at whatever their niche is. So if someone has a problem, I always use Jen Hand. I don't know if she's on here, but she's an eating disorder coach, and she has videos on YouTube. But she's helping people one-on-one, but she's also helping a huge audience of people who are struggling with an eating disorder. So that's what I feel is so great with Video for Coaches, because, take, for instance, you've got a huge audience of over 1,200 coaches in your Facebook group. I don't know what your client list looks like, but my guess is
I wish I had 1,200 clients. That would be nice.
Yeah, well, you've got 1,200 people who are getting great value from you every week, and that's a really cool community. So maybe we can first talk about that Facebook group, because the Coaching Jungle is very cool. I'm glad that you have put that together, and maybe you could tell us how old it is, why you put that together, why you did it on Facebook, and what your personal why is for that, and what people get from it.
Sure. Well, I mean, there's so many Facebook groups. So that would be a question. Oh, do you need another Facebook group for coaches? And not to knock other coaching groups like Facebook groups, but what I was finding, a lot of the coaching groups that were out there a lot of them were bulletin boards with just promo, or it was quiet. There weren't many people sharing, or it was just the actual group admin that was sharing, and there wasn't a lot of activity. And I thought that there was a void to get something going a little bit different. So anyone who's in the group, I know a lot of people in the call today know that it's not just spam, that's out there. People are actually sharing value, and that because you're in there and you share value and stuff. So I felt there's a need for it, and what prompted me to launch it was end of September, so basically 1st of October 2015. So it's really only 5-6 months old. And what prompted me to launch it is I had to have another Facebook group for past guests of my podcast. So there's 350 or so coaches in there. And I kept getting requests for people to join this. That group is called Natural Born Coaches Past Guests, but people weren't noticing the past guest part. They were coaches who were, and I don't blame them. They were requesting to join, and I felt bad having to turn a bunch of people away. And after a while, it got through my thick skull that, maybe there's a need, for a group that's open, not just for past guests, but for any coaches. So the Coaching Jungle is any coach, not just the people who've been on my podcast, and that's why it's grown so quickly. But one thing I made sure I was going to do with it was I don't know about you guys, anyone on here, but it's my pet peeve when people take you and dump you into a Facebook group without your consent. Just, it's not going to ruin my day or anything, but it does kind of tick me off. So I said, I'm not going to do what most people do, where they take hundreds of people, just dump them in without their consent. The way it started was just telling people, hey, this is what I'm doing. Can you check it out? Feel free to put in a request to join if you want. And that's how we got our first couple hundred. Then it just grew from there, word of mouth.
Yeah, and it is a great, I really love Facebook groups. I feel like they're kind of the killer app part of Facebook. And Facebook's cool, but the groups are a really great way for people who don't necessarily know each other to kind of combine together. And that's, I guess, kind of what's going on with Blab now, is that people are interested in a topic and they're able to interact with one another. But they aren't necessarily people who know one another. But I met you, I can't remember how I met you, but it was something probably to do with Facebook, and maybe that group, or actually, I think I was listening to your podcast first. Go ahead. You
remember? I thought maybe through a different group. I'm not as active in other groups now, where I'm putting all my activity in Facebook groups. It could have been another group, I seem to think. But the reason I like groups is I feel like clubhouses. The way that I compare Facebook, say fan pages. Fan pages have their purpose, but let's face it, the engagement isn't always there unless you got huge numbers. Darren Hardy, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, they're going to get great engagement. But I have between my two fan pages roughly 5,000 or 6,000 people, but only 5% are seeing the posts that are in there. And I find fan pages are a little bit more like a billboard, when you're driving by the highway. So they're important, because if you go to a person's fan page and they have 6 fans and 4 of them are direct family members, their mother, their brother and stuff, then I'm thinking, oh boy, are they serious? So it is important to have a good fan page and stay active on it. But I think Facebook groups are good because people are more, you can communicate more. It's got more of a sense of community, like I said, a clubhouse. But if it's done where it's a group that's closed, like say the Coaching Jungle, all your business, your hopes, your fears, your advice, your opinions aren't being shared, blasted out to everybody, right? It's just people in that group. So it's somewhat more, a little more private, a little more close knit.
Definitely. So we're on Facebook. Why don't we move over to Facebook video? Because that is something that you have been successful with, which is, I've seen many of your Facebook videos. So I want to just, talk about that for a little bit. So maybe we can start out with, why Facebook video? Because there are many choices out there, and you kind of touched on that already when you talked about your groups, is that you've kind of narrowed down which groups you're participating in. And I found the same thing. Instead of participating a tiny little bit in many groups, I'm starting to focus in the Coaching Jungle is one of the places that I'm focusing. So this is perfect.
Right.
But maybe you can talk about why you chose Facebook video over all the different things you could have done.
Well, I think part of it is people, if they see enough videos, they feel like they know you, as opposed to reading the written word. You could have the best copy in the world that's on a website, and not that there isn't a purpose for that. It's great to have that stuff, but I think video, you just find that people, they almost feel like they know you a little bit more, because they're able to just hit button, listen to you, and you're 2 feet away from them, right? So I know some coaches that don't use video for different reasons. I've heard all sorts of reasons. I'm trying to get them over to it, because I said, this is your best. And they're like, well, no, I'm posting. I put up a post every day, but it's not the same. And you know how it's going with Facebook video now, and it's going to go even more in that direction in coming years, where they've made it more and more accessible and visible on the timelines. So they're almost now they can autoplay when you're scrolling through your feed. And it's just, it's clear that's the direction that they're going in. So I still do some text-based posting. I do quite a bit. I love writing, but I think that if you're not doing video, you're really missing the boat on it. You got to get doing it. And what I would say with video is, don't try to make it too perfect. I used to, a couple of years, 3 years ago, when I started coaching, I would have a script, and it's like a teleprompter. I was like Obama. I hope we don't have a lot of Democrats here, but I stuck to the teleprompter. And I was reading the script, and people don't want to hear robotic, just reading things. They want to have something that's a little more candid and conversational and informal. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just talking to someone yesterday about, I think with video, if you watch a video and you get the content, but you also feel the connection to the person who was behind the content, and you remember them. When you read a blog post, you get the content, but I would question whether, more than a couple % of people actually remember who was the author of that content, because the author is so separate from the words on the page. So thank you very much for the props, by the way. And so, you chose Facebook too. So what about some of these other platforms? Are you mentioned that you've been on Blab about 6 times now. There are other things. There's Periscope, there's Meerkat. Have you used any of those? Was there a conscious decision, or were you just like, okay, I'm going to stick with Facebook?
Well, I mean, I put my videos up on YouTube, and I put them up on the blog and stuff, but you're going to probably shoot me being a YouTube guy. I'm not a big YouTube guy. They're up there. I've got, 40 or 50 subscribers and stuff, but I just, I find nowadays when it comes to social media, especially Facebook, that's where that's where they're playing. That's their playground, Facebook. So they're already there. So they could just click that button and watch it, and that's where they watch it, as opposed to going over to YouTube and checking out my channel. Or I know there's benefits of it. I'm not trying to bash YouTube, but I just find that Facebook's so accessible, right, to do it that way. So I'm in a lot of the other places, but I really do focus on Facebook. I find it for sharing, for everything's great.
Very much so. I agree. I think finding where your audience is, and video might not be the perfect thing for your audience, but I'm really sold on it. Marc, sounds like you're really sold on it. So, but if people are really uncomfortable, it's going to come across on camera. But you could always just start and get comfortable as you go along. I was incredibly uncomfortable when I first started being on video. I've been playing with video for 25 years, but always on the other side of the camera. And then I was like, okay, I need to do this. Actually, I was kind of my quick origination story. I had a web series. It was pretty popular. And it was popular here in Portland. It was very local. And the local Portland Monthly Magazine did a story on the lead actor. And I was like crushed. And I was like, oh my God, I put so much hard work into this. I'm the writer, I'm the director, I'm the, everything for this thing. But the guy in front of the camera got the attention. That's who people remembered. And I was like, okay, it is time to turn the camera around. So I want to help coaches do the same thing to really, your messages are great. Let's get them out to the world. And
you directed the Twilight series, didn't you? Wasn't that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Twilight. Yeah, actually, I think there was a lot up and watched.
Team Jacob. I don't know.
I'm not quite sure which team I was, but but yeah, I think I was just Team Brighton. Actually, we were doing something. Chris and I were talking about that. Can't remember his last name, but you introduced us, so we were.
Bragg. Yeah.
But Chris Bragg. Yep, exactly. So let's see here. So you're working with Facebook video. Maybe you could tell us a little bit, and feel free to jump in with questions here. I'd love to see some questions down there in the live chat. Love to know if you're using video, if you're using Facebook video, if you think Facebook is the place to hang out or not, or think there's a new place, or Anchor is going to be the new thing and video is going away. So just let us know what you're thinking. But maybe you could talk, Marc, a little bit about what you use. So kind of like the technology behind your videos.
Well, if I'm recording, a lot of my videos are right here in the home office. So I'm using my MacBook and QuickTime, for that. And then I use iMovie to edit. So that's why some people keep it on where they're turning the camera on, and then a few seconds at the end where they're turning it off. I trim that off. So iMovie comes, I believe, pre-installed with newer MacBooks anyways. If you're PC, there's other options, obviously, you can use for that as well. If I'm outside, I'm shooting a video, which not during our Canadian winters, I would freeze my hands off. This winter hasn't been bad. But when I have my iPhone, I record using iMovie is the app that I use. And with iMovie, you can trim and you can do all that stuff right within the app. So I'm using selfie stick sometimes too. So I've got, the selfie stick. I won't be able to go to any of those Portland concerts because I think they're banned, aren't they? And starting to ban selfie sticks in case someone's eyes are getting poked out. But I have a selfie stick and stuff as well. And I also have a little tripod, a mini tripod if I want to set up the iPhone on my desk with that. So all that stuff probably costs under $50 for all of it, except for the phone.
Yeah, but I figure everyone's got a phone these days. So I love that, because I think, the barrier to entry to video has really come down. And, the videos look great and they're being done with iPhones and whatnot. The other thing I want to mention, I just did a video recently, just last week. My YouTube video was about using a selfie stick when you are recording yourself to remove some of the shake. So if you're holding your camera in your hand, you've got a little bit of shake. And if you are holding it at the end of a selfie stick, you actually get a nicer quality video. And you also don't get that look of, someone, your arm going out there. So, look through some of the comments here. Best and easiest way to persuade people is to spend time with them. So I think videos are here to stay. Yes, I agree. And I really feel like this, that one of the things about Blab is that there really is kind of this community part of it, is being able to see the comments. Live video builds trust and relationships faster than recorded video. Definitely agree with that. Actually, I want to go back. So you're working on a Mac, and you're right, iMovie comes free on the Mac. I believe it's $5 to buy iMovie for the iPhone. Is that, do you remember if that was?
Geez, I can't remember, but that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not.
So do you have an external webcam, or do you record with the webcam in your, is it an iMac or a MacBook?
Yeah, it's a MacBook Air. I just use the one directly from the computer. So nothing terribly fancy. I will say we talked about it early on at the beginning with this. This poster has been probably the best $50 I could spend. That's a laminated poster. We're doing a redesign, so I'm getting a new logo for everything. So I'm going to have to get a new one done. But if you're doing a lot of videos, you've got prime real estate right behind you, as long as it's not anything that really distracts people, then I'd recommend getting something like that set up, because I've had so many calls with people where they ask about it, just because of, they see it. No, what's the deal with that if they don't know about the podcast or whatever. So for the sake of a few dollars, I would get something in the background that helps your business as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I feel, actually, I was just watching a Blab yesterday, and one of the guys, I can't remember his name, but he had bacon in his name. That was like his thing, was he's the bacon guy.
Yeah.
And the whole background was bacon. And I was like, yep, I remember the bacon, and I can't really remember the other guys. I remember there were two other guys in there, but the bacon guy stood out.
That's Brian Basilico.
Brian, exactly. Yes. So really, I kind of, that was the point where I'm like, wow, okay, I need a background. Right now, for those of you for those of you who've been here from the beginning, you probably heard this, but I am sitting in my basement right now because, excuse me, my roof is under construction. So if you're hearing the banging, that's what's going on. So I've set up a little studio here in my basement with just a piece of white foam core on the wall and some lights ahead of me. And I'm actually sitting at the base of my basement steps. So I think, though, as I work at this, I'm actually crammed. My knees are touching my steps because there's really no room here. I mean, here's the wall and the steps start right here. So but I guess the other thing that this points out is that you can make a video studio just about anywhere. Yeah. You can do it. But I love that you pointed out the natural born coaches, because that's something that I definitely need to do, get some branding behind me too. Yeah. And I'd encourage everyone else to do that too. I kind of talk in a lot of my videos about avoiding distractions behind you. So no little kids running around, no animals jumping around. You don't want to have I was just down in LA and I set up a little studio down there, and where I worked, right behind me was the bathroom. And people don't want to see your toilet. So close that door. Yeah. But to be able to leverage that real estate is definitely an important part of this.
Well, here's a funny story actually about Brian Basilico that has to do with video. So I thought I'd mention it. Brian is from Aurora, Illinois. Anyone know what movie is made famous by Aurora, Illinois?
Oh, is it the two guys? It's not Dumb and Dumber, but it's before that.
Close, yeah.
Pretty close, yeah. Wayne's World. There we go.
The good Canadian Mike Myers and Wayne and Garth. So Brian Basilico is in Aurora, Illinois, and he used to operate like audio and video equipment and stuff, and he used to do something for a late night television show or something like that. So I made the joke with Brian, getting to know him the last few years. I asked him if he was a cameraman for Wayne's World, down in the basement at 2 a.m. in Wayne's basement, or Garth's, whoever it was. But I thought that was funny. Thought I'd give a shout out for Brian and Wayne's World.
Yep. Party on. So cool. Yeah. Well, I want to touch more on your coaching just a little bit, and just learn a little bit more about you and what you do and who you do it for and how long you've been doing it, because that's not something that I know about you. So maybe you could tell us, how long, or what was your journey into coaching, and how long has that been going on?
Well, my background's in real estate. Through my 20s was real estate. So I did that for over a decade. I've been coaching this is my third year. So a lot of people think I've been coaching for longer, just because I've done a lot of podcasts and stuff. They just assume I've been coaching for 6 or 7 years. And this is just, started my third year a few months back, really. So it goes to show with coaching, if you're consistent and you really work on it every day, and you get your name and your message out there, it's a business that you can get a lot of traction in a relatively short period of time. Now, I tell people, don't get too hung up if you've been in it for a couple months and you feel like you're going slow and things aren't going, because it does take time to get going with it, but relatively short. You're not going to have to spend 10 or 20 years building up your name in coaching. So that's my background, is real estate, and then coaching, which I could say I'm having a heck of a lot more fun coaching.
Yeah, interesting. I did some videos for real estate agents, because real estate's similar. You want to like your real estate agent, but I found that they weren't as much fun. Not all of them. Some of them are great if they're on the call, but coaches just seem to be more positive, more happy folks to be around on a regular basis. So, well, it's interesting. So that I love to hear how quickly you've risen to the level that you're at. And I like I said, I don't know much about your business, but in terms of, you've got a really big group on Facebook of coaches who look up to you, and you've facilitated these people working with each other, which is really an awesome service to us all. But you're relatively new to coaching. So when did the podcast come about? And maybe tell everyone about the podcast, because there's probably some folks on here who don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I started the podcast. I was in it for almost a year as a coach. I started it November 2014. So again, people think it's a lot longer because I've done 405 episodes as of today, just because it was a daily show. So that's the reason they added up quickly. But with the podcast, that sort of accelerated things, I think, because it got me out there to more people, got the message out there. So anyone who, if you don't want to do a podcast, I think it's great to do a podcast. It's definitely a plus. But if you think, oh, I don't want to take on another project and load that onto my plate, at least get out there and get on podcasts as a guest, because it's free. It's relatively little time commitment, and you can grow your business, get some great clients that way as well. So podcasting, something that a lot of coaches, there's a lot that are into it, but there's a lot that aren't. I think it's something that they're missing the boat, just like video, if they're not podcasting.
Great. Well, maybe you could tell, because I'd love to hear. You mentioned get on a podcast. So what's some advice for all of us to get on a podcast?
Ask.
Okay, just find your podcast of choice.
Yeah, it's nothing terribly. There's a little bit of a process to it. So I know from being on the other side of the fence where I get approached by people wanting to be on my show, the way to do it is if you're approaching a host, iTunes is the best way to search for podcasts. That's where it's essentially a directory where everybody is. So take a look through iTunes and check out some shows that you think would be a good match, and then check out their website, see if they're active. Maybe they've been dormant for 3 or 5 years, And if you're going to send a message, whatever you do, don't send a form message that you're sending to everybody that doesn't say that you know what the show's about. So I got a really nice message a few months ago from someone and said, essentially they said, I love what you're doing and the show's amazing and blah, blah, blah. So I answered them back and said, thanks so much, and gave an answer. And then I got an identical message later that day from a different person, literally word for word. And then over the next week, I got a couple of those messages. So what had happened was they must have taken the same program or course that were saying, use this script, get on the shows. Yeah. So my ego just was totally deflated. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not that awesome. So what's better is if I'm going to get on Brighton's podcast, would be to go through, and I don't have to listen to every one of your shows, but look through maybe some of the guests you've had on your show. And I could say, hey, Brighton, I noticed that you had Joe Smith on your show. I loved, he did a blog post about whatever, and I love that one. Or, I really enjoyed what you guys were talking about with sales funnels in episode number 77 or something like that, just to show that you've actually checked it out and it's not just copied and pasted. But it doesn't have to be anything too formal. It's not a bank or a lawyer's letter. Just keep it relatively short and simple. And I've also gotten onto shows through Twitter just by sending a tweet out. Hey, at Brighton West, I'd love to be on your podcast. Can you DM me if you want to chat about it? And then under 140 characters, that's opened up the door. So don't forget about Twitter just because it's only 140 characters. You could actually use that to get on shows as well. And finally, use radioguestlist.com. I'll put it into the chat box here before I forget. If you're not on their radioguestlist.com, they have a free mailing list. So if you sign up for it every afternoon, you get an email saying, here are the shows looking for a guest. So some of them won't be the right fit for you, but that's a free email, or you can pay $5 a month for the premium service. And in that case, you get it first thing in the morning. So you kind of beat the rush. They send a little bit sooner. Radio Guest List is a great resource too.
Cool. Is that only for podcasts, or I know there's something for blabs to try to find. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, tell you the truth, I don't use Radio Guest List as much because I'm overwhelmed with guests, and then also with shows. It's usually I find out through being connected through someone or whatever. So as far as I know, it's for radio shows and blog talk radio, internet radio, and also podcasts. I'm really not sure. I'm not sure if anyone here knows, but I'm not aware of it being for blabs.
Okay. Yeah. And I would love to hear from our listeners here. Love to get more folks involved in terms of, are people using this? That's something that I have not done. I had an interview show on YouTube for, 20 episodes or something like that. That was back when I was more in my web series days. So I was interviewing more people who were in that world. But I guess, it seems a little bit, I don't know, it's intimidating to approach people who have a show. So it's kind of, it's good to know that it's not that difficult. And I love that you shared that radio guest list. So I'd love to hear from anyone else if they're using these methodologies, if they've gotten on other people's shows, on other people's podcasts, or on other people's videos, and how that's going. Also, if anyone else has any questions for Marc or for me, pop those in the message there with a Q, /Q, and it'll pop up as a question. But I'd love to hear from you guys. So let's see here. So is your podcast still daily, or did you change that?
I was going to mention, I noticed a few podcasters on here. So Kathy Stoll and Kay Sanders, they're podcasters and guests, so they may have something to add. Yeah, that's an interesting story about, I'm going to tell this story just because I think it could benefit coaches with their business in general. For the first 200 episodes of my show, I did 7 days a week. So I was like a hamster on a little hamster wheel, go, go, go. And I didn't lose my mind. Thank God. At show 200, I looked and I evaluated. I said, you know what? 7 days a week is hard for me to keep up with, but it's hard for the audience too. And I'm going to survey my audience. And I said, what would you guys think if we went to Monday to Friday? Everyone said, that'd be great, Marc, because I can't keep up with 7 days a week. I'm missing some. So I'm like, perfect.
Yep.
So I hired a coach recently because I think all even coaches can get help. We're not lone wolves.
Yep.
And part of what we're doing is a revamp with the website because it needs to be revamped, revamping the logo and all that stuff. And he spoke to me a couple of weeks ago in our call. He said, Marc, I have to ask you to do something. You're not going to like it. And I'm like, oh God, what's this? Like, are we going to have to rob a bank or something? Or, he said, I want you to go to 2 days a week for your show, which is the equivalent of saying, take a shovel to your baby's head. Right. I just said, oh no, we can't do that. And he said, let me explain it to you. And he walked me through it. And by the end, it didn't take as long as he thought to convince me, because during that call, I said, yeah, let's do it. So a long answer to your short question is it's going to be 2 times a week coming this spring. So there's still a little bit longer at the 5 days a week, but I'm going to be bringing it down to 2 days a week, which will actually probably increase the punch in each of the shows, for lack of a better word. I could do some more things per show because I'm not that hamster on a hamster wheel. And I think there's enough of a base there with 400 and some. Is it going to make a difference if I have 450 or 504 episodes? I don't know. Probably not. But I mentioned the story just because sometimes we get attached to things because we think, oh, I don't want to change my logo. It has daily podcasts or whatever. But you have to constantly shift your business. And part of it with me is I saw the benefits and the advantages for doing it. So that's something that's coming up later this spring.
Cool. Well, that's good to know, because I must admit I don't listen to you daily. I listen to you every once in a while. I know, exactly.
Fucking off. We'll see you guys later. No.
Yeah, exactly. But many people here, many of your audience are daily listeners, I'm sure. But the same thing with John Lee Dumas. He's doing, I think he's still doing 7 days a week, and it's just, there's too much content. And there's a lot of other people to listen to. So I think trying to find that right mix of content that
John's also making 300,000 to 400,000 a month. If I was making 400,000 a month, if people want me to do 20 shows a week, I'll do 20 shows a week. $500,000 a month. I'm game. I'll wear a dress while I'm doing it. I'll make funny noises, whatever you want me to do.
Yep. Yeah. John has recently gotten really excited about Snapchat.
Yeah, I saw that.
And just, because he's making so much money, I'm really excited. I'm like, what's going on Snapchat? Gary Vee is also loving Snapchat.
Yeah, so Meredith and all that. I think John, I picture him using a Blue Yeti microphone. He uses it for one episode and then he throws it out and just buys another one. And then he's blowing his nose with $100 bills. And he got in at a great time and he worked his butt off, and all the power to him. He's done amazing with it. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people look at it and they think, well, John's doing it 7 days a week. I have to do it 7 days a week. And when you step back and look at it, you don't have to do it like that, because it is a ton of content and there's more and more podcasts now. I've heard 250, 300,000. That's a lot of competition with it. So I'm more quality over quantity. So the quantity definitely helped me, but I know there's a lot of people don't get a chance to listen to every episode. And I wouldn't be listening to every episode if I wasn't the one doing the interviews and stuff. I don't want to listen to my stupid jokes 5 days a week either. So you got to just reevaluate your business and change it up if you have to.
Yeah. Well, I want to get in some of the comments here. Coach K is saying that she does use Radio Guest List, and that's been pretty successful for her. And you just got yourself another subscriber to your podcast, Mark. So
there's someone else in the coaching jungle too. Sorry, I meant to give a shout out to Jeff there. Yeah.
Cool. And then Dave's talking about finding a balance with the audience. And I think that's right. And it's tough because it's like kind of like sending a newsletter. You can send a newsletter more often than people read it. But I think you just have to really be okay with that. And, be okay with people aren't going to listen to every episode, but you want to be out there often enough for them to see you. So I want to bring us back a little bit to video before we wrap up here. I like to go 45 minutes on these guys. So, what about how often are you doing video? And are you doing it, in the group, or where are you posting the Facebook videos? And are you doing any editing or whatnot for your Facebook videos?
I started the year out saying I was going to do daily video, and that fell off by the wayside. So I still lately, it's been a couple times a week, but I probably will bump that back up. But no, I don't do editing. I just recorded a video. I had 10 minutes before I hopped onto this blab, and I just read an awesome book. I shared it, I think, on a blab yesterday. This is a book here. Donna would recognize. I mentioned this book, Level Up Your Life by Steve Cam. So I shot a video review about it. I'm going to post it probably tomorrow with it. So I don't do any editing, though. I just use iMovie to trim the beginning and the end. Okay. You don't want to be too polished and stuff like that. So that's my answer on the video. And to answer Jeff, who asked if there's been, sorry to keep dragging it back to podcast. You're a video guy.
No problem.
No, us podcast people are going to take over. Jeff had asked if there's a specific podcast guest that's really made an impact on my business. And really, there's been a lot of them. So it's hard to I'll mention one really quickly that does stand out that I got a lot from is Robert Corey from Feed a Starving Crowd. He wrote that book. If you go to feedastarvingcrowd.com, if you opt into his email list, you get that book, the PDF version, for free. And it's not an 8-page, sometimes people say it's a book and it's like a little napkin. This is a 250-page book with lots of good marketing stuff. There's a lot of meat in there. So Robert Corey comes to mind, but there's probably, all the guests have been great, but there's probably 10 or 15. I was like, oh, wow, this is, this has been really great. The other one I really enjoyed was Larry Wingett. I don't know if you guys have heard of Larry Wingett. Larry wrote Grow a Pear. It's a book where he's got 2 watermelons here. He's a straight talking. He's voting Donald Trump. I'm sure of it. I don't even know his political leanings, but he has a lot of similarities with. He speaks his mind. He doesn't care who he offends. And we had a really fun chat last July. It was July 1st because that's our Canada Day. I remember that. And Larry Wingett, check out his stuff because he polarizes. He doesn't care, and he just puts it out there, and he's done really well that way.
Cool. So yeah, because really video and audio, very similar, and getting guests and whatnot. So how did you get these top 10 guests? Did they contact you? Did you contact them? How did that work out?
Well, again, not to, I sound kind of flippant, but I asked, I'll give you 2 recent examples because one of my goals in 2016 is to improve my copywriting. So I'm diving into the copywriting world and learning who the big dogs are in the copywriting world. And one of them, no pun intended, is named Doberman Dan, speaking of dogs. So Doberman Dan, the other one's Ben Settle, and they're 2 big guys. Well, I'm on their email lists. And with Doberman Dan, I'm in actually one of his communities. I'm in a membership community of his where I pay about $100 a month to be in. And I asked him, hey, I'm in your community. I know you could give a ton of value for the coaches who listen to my show. Here's the link. Would you like to be in it? And he ended up saying, sure, let's book it. And we just recorded it, but it hasn't released yet. And then Ben Settle, I'm on Ben's email, and he subscribes to a school of thought that you email every day, but it's actually good content. It's not fluff or crap. Ben, I just got an email from him one day, and really quick on my phone, hey, Ben, love the email. Would love to have you on my podcast. Here's the link. Do you want to do it? And like 5 minutes later, he emailed me back and said, sure, let's do it. So a lot of these guys, these quote gurus, they wouldn't call themselves gurus, but a lot of these big guys, they want to get out there on good shows too, and don't be afraid to approach them, because the worst they can say is no, and vice versa. If you're going to get on shows too, that's even if they say no, they might say, hey, look, I got another person for you. You should talk to so and so.
Yeah. I like that. So maybe you could tell us all how often during your week how often you're spending time kind of doing this. Essentially, it's content marketing. It's providing content for free, your podcast, blabs, your videos, you're managing your coaching jungle, and how much of your week is spent kind of like earning the money, like doing the one-on-one coaching and whatnot.
It's a tough question to answer. With coaching, a lot of people before they start coaching think they're going to be coaching 80% of the time, and then 20% will be kind of the back end, tying up the loose ends, a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing. That's it. And actually coaching is the exact opposite of that. It's 80% of marketing, content creation, hopefully not chasing people too much, but you know what it is, you got to sell to help at times. So 80% is actual that stuff. And then if you're lucky, 20% is coaching. So my week, my Monday and Tuesday, or especially Monday, is my heavy coaching day. It's just one-on-one clients and then my group program in the evening. And then Tuesday, I've got a couple of my one-on-one clients. And then I have another group that goes Tuesdays. And then, it really all bleeds together. So that's good and it's bad. It means I'm in the coaching jungle, in and out every day. I try to make sure I'm keeping a strong presence there. But the disadvantage is you're always working. If you love what you're doing and stuff, you feel like you always have to do it. So part of the reason I'm doing a change with different things with the schedule and stuff is to get away from 80-hour weeks or so and get to a point where in a perfect world, I'd probably be working Monday to Thursday, hitting it hard and stuff. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is me time, or me and my son time, and a little bit of travel and stuff. And I'm not a 4-hour work week guy. Never want to lay on a beach for 4 hours and work just 4 hours a week. I would go nuts, but I also don't want to work 80 to 100 hours every week either. I want to get a bit of a balance in there.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that. And Dave just said he's tried podcasting, but found that live broadcasting, and I believe that's on Blab. Is that correct, Dave? Is really working in his favor. And I think, it's true. You get a little more when you get a little more when you're on video, because, I'm kind of an energetic guy. I can't remember what words they used to describe me, but it was very polite words. But your personality comes across a little more, and I think it might be a little easier to connect on live video. And it's pretty exciting to see the people that have, come and gone today and kind of been part of this talk. And I like that live feedback from people, something you can't really get with podcasts.
That's right. Podcast, it's more recorded before and then you're releasing it. And it has its advantages. People probably aren't walking through the grocery store with their phone doing a blab because they're going to bang into something, but they can throw a podcast on while they're getting the bread and getting their groceries and stuff. Or when you're driving, you hopefully aren't doing blab. Hopefully no one's driving today. So, it's like anything. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm really enjoying Blab, and I'm not saying that I want to go in and suddenly put 30 hours a week into Blabs, but I think I will start doing more of them because I've had fun just the last couple of days, the ones I've done with Donna and John and some of the people on here as well.
Yeah, I'm liking Blab. I think this might be my platform, and I'm this show, I'm just going to wrap us up here because like I said, I wanted this show to go somewhere in the 40-45 minute range. But I'm going to be doing this every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time and 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Atlantic time. How about we go for that? I feel like video is awesome for coaches, and I'm really excited to have Marc as my first guest on this show. And I hope to see many of you next week. So you can go over to authenticwestfilms.com/blab or blab.im/Brighton West. Going to be changing up next week's guest. So the what's on there now is going to change up a little bit, but every Wednesday I'll be back here talking with some coach that is using video or someone who's helping coaches with video. But and so if you're one of those people, drop me a line. I'd love to have you on the show. And I might be reaching out with you guys too. So Marc, any parting words?
all the other guests won't be as good as this one. No, just kidding. No, good luck and congrats on doing this, because more and more coaches should be getting into blabs. And thanks to everyone for tuning in too. Nice to see familiar faces and not familiar faces.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad to meet some folks, and hopefully we'll see you over in the coaching jungle or back here on Blab. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you in a week, hopefully.